Welcome back, everybody, to episode 26 of Away from the Keyboards, the show that runs with AI agents in the background for every single episode. My guest today is Robert, the founder of Moyai, a company with the mission to make AI agents more reliable in production by having other AI agents on call to do the work for you. Today we talk with Robert about his journey to tech and some leadership lessons he learned along the way that he wants to share with you all. So sit back, relax, grab a coffee, and prepare yourself for this great conversation. So without any further babbling from my part, Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So since we first spoke about it, and as it is customary in this show, everyone gets the same first question. So how did you get into this world of tech? What is your origin story?
My origin story, I think, walks back to, let's say, university. Did my like a lot of beta there, so I did applied physics, and after that, it was quite clear to me that I wanted to have something with data, with ML, DS in my profession. So I think my origin story comes from the boring life of university that got me ready into this world.
Cool. And did you do like a master's? You said PhD?
No, it's a master. So I did applied physics, and we did actually an application to medical physics. So you have a lot of physicists within the hospital that look at, for example, I did my master project in a NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, where we looked at vital signs to try to detect the patent ductus arteriosus. So I always liked the application of mathematics, physics within the real world, having an impact there. And that's how I started. And actually, my first job was as a quantitative finance person within a large Dutch bank. So it was related, but not fully. It was more quantitative finance, so more like model calibration instead of model trading.
Cool. And when you were working in that stuff with the hospitals, how was it to get the data from all of those data points?
So that was the age of the USB stick, where one would go past all of these Philips healthcare systems and you would collect this. And there I learned a lot about the value of an ETL pipeline, because I was basically the orchestrator going around with my USB stick collecting all this vital signs. And if I skipped the weekend, I would have a drop in or like a gap in my vital signs monitoring. So it was a very interesting time to learn that the data acquisition is a thing.
Yeah, that's so fun. Like that's probably way before, connected devices or anything. Like, do you know how it is nowadays? Are they like connected to the internet, or is it still similar for security reasons or something?
What you tend to see is that there is within the ward, there is one central system, and this is used for the nurse that is on call, that kind of manages all these different NICU centers from one central spot. And that's usually also where you can collect it. But I think in general, the privacy reasons, but also to this built-in resilience, these systems will always have a form of autonomy that disconnects them from the wider network, because they also need to be able to function without general electricity or the internet being up. So I think there will always be a two-sided, but I definitely see that now the systems are more integrated, so it is possible to get the data out.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, because one doesn't think about it in that sense. I think and most times with other teams, when you talk about it, is like, oh yeah, software engineering. It's not like you have lives on the line, so we don't need to worry that much about the bugs. But in this case, it's completely different, right? There are lives on the line.
So we were doing monitoring, so we were not building the system itself. So that does give this ethical cushion that you can make a mistake. But indeed, it is a different type of engineering when you are engineering for things like hospitals, airplanes, these very vital pieces of infrastructure and equipment. Yeah, 100%.
That's so cool. Hey, before we go into our main topic, there is a recurrent segment in the show that is called Pass It Forward, where a guest gets to pass forward a question to another guest. And the question to you comes from our previous guest, Vogdam. And he asked, in the age of AI, how important do you see the three Ps? And the three Ps meaning people, product, and processes.
Yeah, so I think actually what we are seeing in the age of AI is we are seeing a change of what a software developer does. And I think we are seeing the rise of the product engineer. So where more of what the company does as a whole is embedded within the function of one person. I think that will mean for the future that being able to write code will not be sufficient. You should be able to understand the problem, should be able to design a system that can solve that problem for your customer, and you should be able to build it and maintain it. And I think this is all going to come inside. And I think, and Linear has a piece on this, that the processes will also change. So I believe that the traditional view of squads will go away and you work more on a kind of project basis. So like now the biggest issue for the company is X. So now we all rally about this, solving this problem X, and we use our expertise from different parts of the system that we know on how to improve this. And then once we have resolved that problem, there will be a new problem to solve. So I think that will be a big change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting view about it. Yeah, they will still be there, but for sure they will be disrupted as everything is being disrupted in the industry right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's the extent to which we believe there will be an effect is known. I think we will be quite big and maybe bigger than the technologies we have seen before, especially for the knowledge workers. But I think how it will disrupt, that is still being worked out right now. And I think it mostly revolves around people showing what is the right way to use it, what is the best way to get results, and then people will copy that behavior, I would say.
Cool. And thinking about right ways to use AI, you recently started a new venture called Mohai. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'll leave it to you to tell me how it should be pronounced. So tell me a little bit about it. Where did this idea came from?
So Moyai is actually the Easter Island statue, emoticon that you have on your keyboard. So actually it is not the Easter Island or Rapa Nui statue, it is a copy from Japan. And what I set out when I started Moyai was to look at like models and fine tuning and like really taking control. So when I founded Moyai, it was a year ago, these foundational models were all the rage. Everybody was looking at how to use these models, what is the application of this intelligence that we're now getting with these foundational models. And myself having a background in data, ML, AI, like I always thought to myself, like, why are people not training their own models? So the initial proposition that we had with Moyai was to have fine-tuning as a service, where we would train people's models based on the data that flows through an AI router that we maintain. And that was the initial premise. But one of the things that we did see is that the rate of change of these foundational models has been astonishing and wildly above what we expect. So in the last year, the amount of improvements in intelligence that we have seen from these foundational models is absolutely amazing.
Cool. And do you have any foundational model that you kind of prefer over the others?
So I think this would be mostly in the application of using these models myself. I have a preference, being a software engineer, that I like Claude because Claude is like RL fine-tuned, let's say, to our to what a developer might want. It understands code quite well. On the other side, I also think it is a bit more. I would like to say it's a bit more down to earth. Like I just think OpenAI, which is of course the biggest or most used foundational model, is a bit more pompous, and I don't like that style. So, but that could also be because I've used Claude so much. Have come familiar to that style, and that's why I prefer it. So it's a very hard to say. But yeah, that's my go-to foundational model.
That's curious. I have the same feeling when I'm using it on the GitHub Copilot that I also have a preference for Claude over the other models. Somehow, I feel like Claude is the one that understands what I'm typing and gives me exactly what I just asked. And all the other ones end up messing around with my code or what I said, like they interpreted wrong. So yeah, interesting.
I think that above the general intelligence of the model itself and like the quirks and how it works, I think also the framework in which you use it is very important. So if we look at Claude, the reason why I like Claude is because I like Claude Code. And Claude Code and the tools that I use, it is very well suited to use that. So I think it's also a way on like how do you access that intelligence that determines what is your preference. And for me, that's Claude Code.
Cool. And do you think that, for example, this is something that I've been looking around as well as I have several different models always open in my tabs, and I use different ones for different tools. Have you also came across that as something that when you guys are training the models, if a customer comes in and he has a specific request that you say, hey, maybe this is the best model for this case. Maybe you should go with GPT, but maybe according to your data and your use case, maybe Claude is most indicated for you.
And so we now focus more on agentic evals. If you look at agentic evals, very important that the evaluating model or like could argue it's important that they are not the same, but that the evaluating model is not the same than the model that is being evaluated, because it will have certain preferences to its own created content or generated content. In general, I think now with the new Cursor release and some of these Claude Code kind of tools that are around it, like Conductor.build, they are starting to have this idea of like, okay, why don't you ask one, or you have one prompt and you run it over multiple models? I think it's super interesting, especially in like Cursor agentic mode, where you could say, well, why not let Gemini, OpenAI, and Anthropic solve the same issue and see what works best? I think that is a super interesting way of developing. I think it's also very valuable. I just noticed that it's very far away from how I tend to work, because I like to be a bit more in control, really follow the traces that are coming out, and understand what's happening. But if you let that go a bit, I think that could be a really good development cycle where you can get a lot of value out of using each model for the best way, for what it is best in, let's say.
Yeah. And do you notice any differences in the usage of models, for example, between let's put it, the vibe coders, which is maybe people with a bit less software engineering skills that just know how to do proper prompts and get the best out of the models, and the software engineer that really knows what they want to get out of that model, and maybe they do a more strict prompt that it's not that much vibed.
Yeah, so I think what happens a lot with the degree of vibe coding, let's say, and to be honest, I've noticed that in San Francisco, for example, vibe coding can be used for software engineer using Claude Code. So the terms are even evolving as we speak. But I think if you are fully vibe coding, and that I would define as you do not know the code that's being written by your agent, then you tend to worry mostly about outcomes, right? So you look at, okay, I'm developing a website, and I think about stuff like, hey, how does it look? Does it have a nice style? And there, Gemini or OpenAI, they could have a better style format, or better aligned with the content that they see on the internet. Well, if I am more a software engineer trying to build something fast with AI, I tend to favor things like modularity or portability. Can I run it everywhere? What is the build system that I'm using? So I tend to go maybe more low level. Maybe I look at components. I think SHA-CDN is a good example of something that has really seen a large increase in usage as more people are vibe coding or less vibe coding these front ends. And then you need to look, okay, so SHA-CDN is done by Vercel. So V0 actually does a very good job at SHA-CDN blocks. So maybe as a software engineer going vibe coding, using V0 over something like Lovable enables you to have a website build that you can then adapt later on using the components. So I definitely think that there is a difference in general preference if you are fully vibe coding or you are more software engineering, but it tends to also depend on, like, are you doing backend, doing front end? Like these kind of things are very important in that.
Yeah, when I do backend, at least from my side, I first started approaching vibe coding as like, I'm going to give all the reins to the AI, let it see how it goes. But I always ended up having some issues with that, and the code that got created, I was never able to just vibe code my way out of it. So then I started taking a different approach, which was thinking more on kind of microservices architecture and just getting the AI to vibe code a small microservice that is easier for me to also, as a human, to debug and understand what it's doing, and then just building microservices over microservices, putting everything in Docker, maybe creating a Docker compose to then generate everything from there. But yeah, not that much going wild with the vibe coding. At least for me, it's been the one that works so far. But I guess could be a control issue here.
Well, I think it also really depends on, like, are you starting greenfield or do you have like a brownfield kind of approach, right? So think that especially for some software engineers that maybe have like side projects and also doing stuff at work, the amount and the way that they use AI is completely different. Like nobody wants to do full YOLO mode Claude code on an existing legacy Cobalt code base. Like that sounds like a recipe for disaster. Well, if you're building a little front end, there's nothing there, and you just want to get something up quickly, it's great. Like don't take in control, and also maybe you will find that you will get something that you didn't think about, but that still works. And that's, I think, is also a way to learn as a software engineer. Oh, this is a different kind of architecture, or a different kind of way to build it. And of course, every time you need to assess, is this the right style for what I'm trying to achieve with my project?
Yeah, that's so true. At least I know I learned a lot with small little scripts in Shell script, just by letting the AI go wild and build whatever I wanted to build. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that these functions existed. So it's quite of an interesting learning opportunity there as well.
I think Bash has seen a renaissance. I think like before everybody would put everything in CI/CD. Bash scripts were like, no, I need to have that managed way better. And now Bash scripts are great because the AI gets them, writes them very quickly. You can run it on any machine, and there's like the full portability. So like you see these technologies that like traditionally were very popular. They came or there were SaaS offerings that were better, and the question is always what is better. But like a lot of people adopted them, and now people are going back to the like roll it yourself buggy. And the term I heard for that is reinventing. So you are not going like fully building something from scratch, but you basically say, look, I know what a CI/CD pipeline is. In theory, it's a bunch of bash scripts are being run on a cron job. So like instead of like having to teach the AI to use this certain framework for CI/CD, why not just do it myself, buggy with some cron and bash scripts to get running? And I think the velocity at which you can get feedback from the system. That is super important if you want to develop quicker with AI.
Yeah, it's almost like the home lab mentality where you build it yourself, a lot of these things. So it's quite interesting.
It's tinkering. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking a lot. Yeah. And what is one of the things that you think that we are doing wrong in the industry when it comes to agentic AI?
So this is the reason that we are looking now more into infraless agentic evals with Moai. I think that, and there's a famous paper which is called The Bitter Lesson that says that like intelligence that does not scale with compute tends to always lose, right? And I think that with evals, that is what we're currently doing. We're saying the human needs to evaluate. Human in the loop is a very popular term. Which means that actually you are limiting the capabilities of the agent. And even worse is because if you want, and you see this also with unit tests, if you want to test something and you need to do that with rule-based kind of system, you tend to favor workflows over truly agentic flows because those are easier to predict. You know which branches there are, and you want to have predictable failure modes. For some workflows, that is perfect, especially if you want a lot of control, especially if the variety or the what you need to generate is very homogeneous. Perfect. Like workflows are the way to go. You don't want to go full agent there. But there are a lot of things, and we are seeing that these are also usually the frontiers of tasks, of domains that we are unlocking with agents, where you have a very heterogeneous generation pattern, where you actually want multi-steps, you want to use tools. And the more that you can let those go and you can more scale these evaluations to scale with compute, to be in control and to like monitor these systems in production, the more opportunity you have. And we have not yet solved that. So now we are currently still using the kind of like unit test where I think we need to go to like something like fuzzing or integration test, like for evals.
Yeah, that's a cool one. Yeah, I didn't thought about it in that sense. Yeah, because we do have a lot of bias towards the way we approach, especially when it comes to rule-based engines, which have been in our industry since forever. Like it's just a bit of, for people that don't know what rule-based is basically just a bunch of if-then else's, just all together. And yeah, it's a curious one. Yeah.
I think, for example, in ML, we have the example of explainability, right? So I think LLMs have removed a bit the idea of explainability because it's just impossible. Or like it's not impossible, but there's a lot of work and it's like active research trying to solve that. But if you look at explainability of ML systems for a long time, we would do LIME, right? So it's a linear approximation of this non-linear predictor. And then we said, well, it's probably doing this, or it's probably focusing on that. And the question is that is not because the system needs this control. I think an ML system can do whatever it wants if it is correctly set up. But it's for us as people, because we want to understand what it's doing, we want to feel in control. And we also want to prevent it from doing things that we do not desire the system to do. And I think for LMs, we have to reinvent that a bit, or we have to rethink on how we do that in a way that doesn't constrain the possibilities of what is possible with these agents.
Yeah. Another subject that I wanted to talk with you about is around leadership. You have been a leader for some time, and one of the things that I would like to check with you, you've been leading engineering teams, you've been leading companies as you started the new company. Which one do you like the most, and which one do you find the hardest?
Yeah, so this is here is so I think starting a company is the hardest you'll ever do. I think in general, starting anything new. So, I mean, starting a company is one thing, but you could also start a new research, or you could start a new kind of like movement, let's say. So these kind of things are very hard to do because it's uncharted territory, but they also are very fulfilling. So I think it's also the nicest. I think one of the things that is very interesting when you start a company compared to like leadership of tech teams within big established companies is that you have a lot more freedom. So you have a lot more freedom to define what you believe to be the right way to do it. The problem is that and I think this is I think you want to focus on input, right? What am I doing to create the right output? And if you start focusing on outputs, that can become very tricky. That works better if you are in an established company, because there are already benchmarks, or you have seen past what is the expected output. So you can say, for example, oh, if I want to increase the developer speed, if we see how many features or how many problems we are solving for customers last year, and I change the way that the org is structured, we can see if that improves. So that's a nice, very relative gain. But if you start from scratch, you have nothing. So then the question is, am I doing the right thing? Should I push forward, or should I change course? I think these are very complex things that whenever you're starting something new, you don't really know. And the line between being stubborn and being persistent is very narrow.
And how do you approach this, getting that input and that feedback? Do you have like a support structure from maybe other founders, other people that are starting their own companies? That you guys speak together and just brainstorm about it, or how does it go about?
So I think that in general, there is a lot of information out there. People are willing to share. Nobody's I think it is a misconception that people don't want to help and people want to keep everything in-house. I think a lot of this information is shared. And I think being able to have the right channels to find this content being generated around the world is very important. I sometimes say is look, having the right Twitter feed can be the way to get the information that you want. Following the right articles in Hacker News, that can be really a yes or no, or like a game changer in how you are dealing with these problems and what you decide to do next. And I think, of course, also speaking to people in person is very important. But this doesn't scale as well as just reading all this content that is out there. So I think that's a better way to do it. But of course, it's always good to then ground that. So then say to other founders that you speak to, hey, I've read about this. Do you also believe in that? Do you think that's right? Or and also try to be somebody has to be the devil's advocate. So say, well, if I were to argue that this is wrong, why would it be wrong? And try to define your own opinion there, and make sure that you also internalize those learnings. So reading how somebody else does it is not very important. It's about learning how that relates to your situation and what you believe that you should do different. And if you do that correctly, I think then you will find for yourself a natural path that fits with your style, fits with your desires, and makes you feel comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's my experience as well. I do believe that a lot of people are just ready to help out if you want to give them a nudge. I wouldn't have a podcast any other way. I just reach out to people that, do you want to talk about your story? Do you want to maybe teach me about some lessons in leadership, or how did you found your own company? And
for example, for you, have you ever noticed that people say, no, I'm not willing to go on the podcast? Is that, or is the modus more that people say, yeah, of course, love to help?
Yeah, so far it has been great. Most of the people either they don't reply, which could be because I reach out to a lot of people, but that's okay. People are busy. They have their own stuff to do. But so far, most of the people that reply back, it's always like, yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea. I'd love to share and participate. And yeah, so far it has been a great experience for me.
And that's yeah. I think and I think this is the most important things for people that feel they are stuck or they don't know what to do is ask for help. I think that's the best way to get moving, and also to I think there needs to be diversity of thought, right? And if you keep everything in your head, you don't get that diversity of thought. You only get it from asking for help.
Yeah, indeed. You need to reach out to other people and lose that fear of I think of fear of rejection because well, a lot of people out there are just ready to help out and bring some knowledge into that. And I think that follows up to my next question, like what is one of the leadership lessons that you learned along your way that really stuck with you?
Oh, I've read the book Loonshots from Safi Bakal, and it tries to define what you need to do to cultivate crazy, industry-defining ideas. And I think what I learned a lot there is politics. I think politics and like politics is an inevitable thing that we see within large corporations. And to the extent of if you can say that's good or bad, that's not really on me for. But it could be that you want to have more politics, you want to have less politics. And I think in the book it correctly describes that like leadership, the job for leadership is to define what you want your company to be. So for very large companies, that means that cultivating that there is, for example, a political structure that makes sure that ideas are spread throughout the organization and that they are tested if they comply to what the overall company wants to achieve. That's super important. For a small company, maybe that's less relevant because you want to be quicker. You don't want to have a committee. So I think like for me, the leadership question there, or like the leadership lesson is like the way that you structure your company or your organization determines what you will get out of it. And if you don't like what there is, so maybe there's too little or there's too much of something, then you need to change the way that you structure your company. And I think like WhatsApp is a very good example, is they set out early on to say, okay, we will want a small organization because it's easier to manage. But therefore, we need to make certain choices. So they said, okay, we're a messaging app. So we want to have a fully functional approach because it's super scalable. So with 70 people, they did 1 billion messages. That's crazy. Like that nobody vibe codes that. That's really an understanding of like how to do it. And for example, I learned that they did it with Erlang because they said that's a really good language for like the problem that we're trying to solve. But the problem was the maturity of that framework was like very low. Like it wasn't used a lot in industry. So a lot of things like developer tooling was not around. So they had to reinvent that, or they had to rebuild that for the Erlang ecosystem. Like normally people say, it's stupid. Like why don't you use a language that is more developed, where there's a lot of developer tooling already out there? They said no, because like we have set out that we want a small organization, therefore we need to have a language which, the idiomatic character of the language needs to correspond to what we're trying to build, and therefore we will need to build these developer tools ourselves because nobody else is doing it.
That's a cool. Yeah, so different companies, different approaches, and that kind of leads me to also another follow up between the conversations that I had with other founders that came into the show. One of the things that they say is it's very important to get right is those 10, 20 first people that will drive the culture of the company and drive like decisions, like for example this one, what kind of language are we going to start building our tech stack in? So how do you approach this challenge in Moai?
Yeah, so I agree. I think hiring is one of the hardest things you will do, and like I think problem is hiring is not that hard. Hiring correctly is very complex, and I think one of the things that and this is very followed in like Linear also has this approach, and it looks a bit like the WhatsApp example, which apparently like because that is a thinking that I have, that's why these examples appeal to me, is hire less. So just don't grow as fast. Try to invest more in getting the right experience in. But funny enough, that doesn't mean that you do not hire juniors. Because so I spoke to the maintainer of the Cassandra project at the database at Apple. And he explicitly mentioned like, I'm looking for juniors. And I asked him like, oh, that's super interesting, because nowadays they say that juniors are like more people are hiring seniors, not juniors. And he said, yeah, but we need to retire at some point. So if I do not start thinking about the longevity of the project, and I think like of course the Apache Foundation does this a lot, like, okay, like it's nice that it's working right now, but like if we want this database to be around for the next 50 years, people need to take it over from us. And I think that's a way to look at it. So I think it's about hiring less. It's about hiring the right competences. And for somebody who's more junior, that could mean that you need to have the right mindset, right? Want to learn. And what they're seeing, what we're seeing right now is actually that with this new type of AI development, where AI plays a much more central role, sometimes people that have a fresh outlook, they have a new way of doing stuff, can actually inspire seniors to be like, hey, this is actually a way that I didn't think about it. And for example, this use case where you use multiple models to develop the same kind of application and then pick from all these different model runs, it's something that people say that junior developers do a lot more than seniors, because they know how to do it. They are more native to this approach. And apparently they also are less, they kill their darlings easier. They don't have any blood, sweat and tears in this written code. So they have like, I can throw it all away, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, it's almost like the Kubernetes approach when we started taking microservices more as cattle and less as pets. And now we are doing the same with code. We are looking into code as more as cattle. Like you build it, it runs, it has a bug, maybe you can rewrite it from scratch very easily with AI, and you don't need to be digging around in several hours trying to find what the bug problem is.
I think that's a very nice approach, 100%. Yeah, you have the swarm idea. Yeah.
Cool. And going a bit onto our advices segment of the podcast, you've been working on the edge of computer science for some times on the latest and greatest, so the AI cool stuff. How do you do, for example, to keep yourself up to date with the latest technology?
So I think like my central dogma is that everything is foreign unless you try it. So you can read about stuff and it sounds like the most sci-fi you have ever seen. Like, oh, Kubernetes is a good example. Kubernetes, when you think about it, like that sounds like something out of this world. Bring up your first pods, like check the networking, like just do it. And you will see that it's after you have tried something and you have learned the basics, a lot of smoke and mirrors disappears, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit the same. It's a bit like this, but then different. Oh yeah, Kubernetes. Yeah, it looks a bit like Docker, but then it's a bit more complicated. So I think this is always the right way to get deeper into a subject, and you will notice that once you start investigating or like trying it out, you will learn other stuff, because you will hit a bump and you will look it up. And so process here is to get the right kind of like seed that creates this curiosity for you to try something out. And there, I think that actually we've seen that the shift has really moved. So I think one of the nice things about AI is that in the past, most of these breakthroughs, they came from papers and big research organizations, and like it was quite dense to read that through. Like I don't know anybody there are probably people that do that, but like that read papers for relaxing. So I think actually that now we've seen that like sometimes it could be a small research group. It can be from anywhere in the world that releases something that is like really pushing the frontiers of what's possible. And I think that tends to be very good, because these people, if they really are, if they want to push these ideas to the world, they tend to present it in a really understandable way, and it's easy to get started. So like that for us as people that are taking in that information, that's really nice. And I think that's really unique at the AI side of things, where I think flash attention was invented by one guy on Reddit or something. Like this is a major step in inference speed, and like this person just said, oh, if you do it like this and this. I think Onslaught is a very good example. Like there's probably more than one person now, but like it started with somebody who's just really good at writing CUDA kernels, and it could do that so that all these packages were easier to train. Like I think that's really unique in where we are right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful the power of the community and how things just move along. And I think it goes exactly with what you just said. It's like not being afraid to test out new things to learn about it, because all of them look like, yeah, magic or some wizardry. I know for myself, like I come from the data world, and the first time that I heard about Docker, I was like, this sounds like a lot. And now I have, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 Docker containers running on my home lab at home that I manage all of them. And there is no difficulty at all. Like once you start touching about it, it's kind of, once you know how magic trick is performed, it becomes easier to understand how it works.
And it also ties back to this change that we're seeing, right? So in the past, if you were a data person, you would only need to do some statistics, let's say. And like now, it also means like, oh, you need to be a platform engineer as well. You need to be able to run these different applications in kind of like containerized environments. Now you need to start thinking about build systems, like, because like, oh, it's super annoying to get this code built reproducible. How do I do that? So I think being curious and also looking where is the friction. So I think to an extent, what is unique in that sense is like if you decide to always tackle the biggest problem that you have next first, you will grow a lot more. You will become a better or a more complete, let's say, software engineer, or engineer in general. But it is also sometimes the hardest because these biggest problems are a biggest problem for a reason. They look very complex, very scary. Oh, there's going to be a lot of work before I know that. And I think now with AI, that helps. You can ask, hey, can you try to build me something? I can look at it. So like, I think the barrier to get started with something is lower, which is great because I think getting started is the first step to learning it. And then just gradually improving your understanding, doing more yourself, and tackling the next problem that comes along is the best way to get familiar with all these concepts. And also feel that you will be able to choose what is right for your situation and not choose what you know, because that's what you feel comfortable with.
Indeed, it's like also a procrastination killer at the same time, because the barrier to entry now is so small, and at least for me, I seen it as for pet projects or to learn something. Like now you don't have the excuse that, oh, I need to read a gigantic book and or spend 5 hours listening to YouTube videos to learn about something. Like you can get that information way more concentrated and focused to what you really like to do.
Yeah, but there's also a risk in that sense because it's very easy to get started. That's good, but that also means that it's when you get stuck, it's easy to start something new, right? So you also need to sometimes be like, okay, you set out to build this website or this application. Don't stop now when you're trying to deploy it multi-cloud because it's hard. Like now, really go that's the extra mile and try to do that more complex part as well, instead of starting another website that already runs on AWS and you do it again. So I think human nature will always, you are always fighting yourself. That is my, doesn't matter how intelligent the AI gets, the biggest enemy is you. And so you need to be smart and you need to trick yourself a bit to make sure that you are doing what is best for you in the situation. Conversely, I also think that it's not always about optimization, right? So like, okay, so today you didn't learn as fast as you could. Now, is that a problem? I don't think so. As long as you set out, if you again think about the inputs, I'm trying to do it. It doesn't mean that it always works completely, the output that I expected. At least you're trying, you're showing up, you're doing your work. I think that's the only thing that you can really demand from yourself. And then what it leads to is maybe less important.
Yeah, and talking about learning, if you would start today, fresh, new, coming into college, what would be one advice that you give to your younger self?
Yeah, so I was always happy with the decision that I made to go for a more like generic, relatively complex subject like applied physics. I think it has always. So I think you create a good basis. It's very wide, so it also you create a form of optionality. You can then still do stuff. I mean, of course, there will the school system in general, or like let's say growing up, you need to at some point kill some optionality. So you will choose if you go into a more beta subject, it's going to be more in the beta, and that's of course something that you cannot avoid. I think so. You have a wide basis, which means that then later on you can use that to start learning in more specialized areas where you want to focus on. And I think second reason why I really liked applied physics in general is if you would ask people why they chose this subject in university, it would be 50 mix. So 50% would say, hey, I really like the subject, I like applied physics. And the other 50% would say, it's the hardest subject I could find. And that to me sounded such a strange way to kind of decide it. But it actually works really nice, because if you do it, if you take a subject that you believe that is very complex and like it really shows that you, like you prove yourself to yourself a bit, then actually after that you get more comfortable in like tackling a new problem, because you're like, look, I tried that other thing, it worked. And Pippi Langkous, she has the famous quote, of course, like, I never did it, but I think I will manage. And I think that's a bit how you need to think about it. Like, if you feel comfortable with like tackling problems that you think are hairy and scary, and the next hairy and scary problem that you will see, you will probably feel comfortable tackling. So I think that would be my advice to people.
Yeah, it's so true. Like if you feel comfortable doing hard things and complicated things, then the hard things become easy things to manage. That's a cool way to approach it.
One thing to add there, maybe also, I think like something that is like something that's super fundamental but like has never changed is this idea that like the world is a big place, and going to different places within the world as soon as possible and trying to incorporate it within your studies, where I think the studies is a good place where it could be possible to take advantage of certain programs that are in place. Try to see as much different places as possible, because that really creates this like diversity of thought again, where maybe the way that they're doing it here is different than they do it in San Francisco. Conversely, also maybe the way that they do it in San Francisco is not that different than here, and that could also be like kind of like a mindset, a change that says like, look, we can do great stuff here. We don't need to be somewhere else to be doing it there.
Yeah, we are all humans in the end, and we have more in common than we think. It's a kind of a fun thing that I also discovered working in other countries. That, for example, I worked in Istanbul, and one of the fun parts about it was that coming from Lisbon to Istanbul, you then start looking into the architecture, and it's like this is almost the same. It feels like I'm in Lisbon again, and everyone around just feels the same. So it's quite interesting to start learning that we are so far apart in, for example, Europe. One is in the east side, the other one is on the west side, and they are almost exactly the same.
That's funny. So I studied in Eindhoven in the south of the Netherlands, and we were with the university college. We were thinking about like a mandatory foreign experience. Half year you have to go abroad, and then there were a lot of practical issues raised. You know, like, hey, but what if it's unaffordable, or like what if people need to be here in the Netherlands? Like, these could be practical problems that come into place. And then I know that the rector Magnificus had a really good statement. He said, look, if you have never been out of Eindhoven, Belgium is good enough. Like, going to Belgium, if you have never been out of Eindhoven, it will change your world. You will see something. The culture there already has like different elements. So it's not about the distance. It's about changing the environment, and I think that Europe in particular is very good, very well suited for that, because there's so much cultural diversity in a small amount of square meters that I think it is perfect for opening your mind and getting this diversity of thought.
That's so cool. And to try to finish up with a good advice, what is the best career advice that someone gave to you that you'd like to give to the audience of this podcast?
It was a very pragmatic one, but when I was within ING, we were doing a lot of modeling, risk modeling, and these things would have to be actually assessed by like a model assessment part of the company. And I would, in these talks, when these model evaluators would come by, I would like try to like share a lot, like talk a lot. And then I would later complain about that these meetings always took so long and they always asked so much. And he said to me, if you want a short meeting, you should talk less. And this is very true. So in most cases, you are the one that are doing the talking. This creates a response, and you get back and forth, and now you're full of an hour. And so he said, like, if you don't want to have a long meeting, you should talk less. And that was a really good advice. So I always took that to heart. Yeah, it's a very practical lesson, but yeah, I really enjoyed it.
That's a super nice productivity lesson for us to end the podcast. But before I let you go, if people want to know more about you, Mohai, if people want to find you, if they want to reach out, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so I mean, LinkedIn, Robert Hommes. Send me an invite. We have a website, moyai.ai, where you can go, and also contact information is in there. And yeah, and if you see me at events, yeah, say hi. Love to hear your thoughts, and if you have remarks or additions to what I said here today, love to speak to them.
Lovely. And I'll make sure to add all of those links and contacts into the show notes that people can find you and reach out to you. Once again, Robert, thank you so much for coming to the show and having this chat with me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Ruud.
It was a pleasure. And to everyone still listening out there, keep your agents well fed and see you again away from the keyboards.